Lackey?
Aye.
Lackey, aye. Bonta?
Aye.
Bonta, aye. Bryan? Quirk?
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Santiago? Sayarto?
Aye.
Sayarto, aye.
Consent calendar is adopted. First up on the agenda is item number 1, AB 2287, Bauer-Kahan, hate crime symbols. You have your witness has. You have witnesses?
You're on the phone.
Okay. Whenever you're ready to begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's nice to be back with all of you this morning. So first I want to start by thanking the chair and committee for working diligently with us on this bill and getting us to a good place where we can move it forward, and happy to take the committee suggested amendments today. Today I'm here to present AB 2282, a bill that would equalize penalties on 3 prominent symbols of terror: the noose, the Nazi swastika, and a burning cross. In June of 2020, a black doll was found hanging from a power line in South Lake Tahoe with a noose around its neck. In November of 2020, a man walked across the town of Fairfax placing swastikas on all the telephone poles. In March of 2021, a 19-year-old African-American woman in Arroyo Grande near San Luis Obispo awoke to see an 11-foot-tall cross blazing in an adjacent lot directed towards her home. This all occurred in just the last few years. These symbols of terror continue to plague our communities. And let's be clear, the intent of these incidents is often to terrorize the communities where they are. FBI crime statistics report that hate crimes surged the highest level in 12 years in 2020, with crimes motivated by race almost doubling. Statistics show that 56% of all hate crimes in America are motivated by anti-Black sentiment. During the pandemic, hate crimes against Asian Americans were at an all-time high, fueled by claims of blame for the pandemic. Despite campaigns to combat these trends, symbols of hate continue to appear all over California with the goal of terrorizing and intimidating minorities. Our laws on the symbols of terror have been piecemealed together throughout the years and are woefully inconsistent. For example, anyone caught hanging a noose can only be charged with a misdemeanor, regardless of the number of offenses. Anyone caught posting a swastika under current law can be charged with a misdemeanor on the first offense, and subsequent offense can be charged as a wobbler. The locations for which these symbols may be placed also differs across the code. When we punish a burning cross more than a swastika and a noose less than a swastika, we are negating the psychological impact and physical threat to a targeted group. With hate crimes increasing across the state, it's critical to recognize the power and destructiveness of these symbols and restrict their use accordingly and consistently. AB 2282 will equalize the penalties for all 3 of these terror symbols by making them all a first-time wobbler. The bill will also equalize the locations for which these symbols can be charged. We've had numerous discussions regarding concerns about the expansion, including of public locations and of potential violations to the First Amendment. But I want to say, and as I've said in this committee before, the constitutional rights imbued on American people and Californians is critical to me, and we worked hard to limit the law to ensure that we are protecting Californians' right to express themselves through the First Amendment while also understanding the limitations placed on that speech by the courts. With me today to speak in support of the bill is Kendall Kosai, Director of Policy with the Anti-Defamation League, and Mark Levine with the Name, Oppose, and Abolish Hate of Marin, and they are both on the phone. Mr. Chair.
Move the bill.
It's been moved and second. We'll now hear from witnesses by telephone. Mark with a K.
I know it's confusing.
Yes. You may begin, Mr. Levine. AT&T operator, could you let our first witness in?
One moment. Mr. Levine, your line is open. You might have your mute button on.
Good morning, Ms. Bauer-Kahan, Mr. Jones-Sawyer, and committee members. I'm Mark Levine from NOAH Marin, which stands for Name, Oppose, and Abolish Hate. My family's history consists of Holocaust victims and survivors. In 2020, a young neo-Nazi traveled 68 miles to the small town of Fairfax in Marin County and posted stickers with swastikas and the slogan, "We are everywhere." It did not seem he was targeting a Jewish population, His only message was to inspire fear across the entire spectrum of the community. A young Fairfax resident confronted him, and the police were alerted. Sadly, the DA could not prosecute him because of gaps in Penal Code 11411. This heinous act and the failure of law became a pebble that caused not ripples, but waves of outrage in our county. Yet these events were hardly isolated to Marin County. NOAH Marin and AB 2282 sponsors had a simple solution. Make the law regarding the three hate symbols, the noose, swastika, and burning cross, as uniform and ubiquitous as possible. A uniform approach protects us all from the sinister strategies purveyors of hate use to manipulate these symbols, often associated with white supremacy. Nooses, swastikas, and burning crosses open the door to more perilous behavior. These symbols undermine truth and create chaos. AB 2282 will serve to prevent this. Thank you to the chair, the committee, and to Assembly members Bauer-Kahan and Levine for a wonderful example of legislature and community collaboration.
Thank you. Next
I'm done.
Good morning. My name is Kendall Kosai, and I am Director of Policy for the Anti-Defamation League's Western Division. I'd like to thank Assemblymember Bauer-Kahan and the committee for inviting us to testify in support of AB 2282. Founded in 1913 in response to an escalating climate of anti-Semitism and bigotry, ADL now has become a leading anti-hate organization with 24 regional offices across the country. Let us make no mistake, the noose, burning cross, and swastika are symbols of hate that are deliberately used to terrorize racial, ethnic, and religious minorities. Nearly every day at the ADL, we receive reports from terrified community members that these symbols of terror in their communities are affecting their everyday lives. This is a real problem. AB 2282 seeks to align the penalties for using these symbols with the intent to terrorize and to expand the locations where such acts are illegal. We must respond to the recent rise in anti-Semitic, extremist, and hate-fueled incidents terrorizing communities throughout the state. For the Jewish community in particular, swastikas are hurtful to the memory of the more than 6 million Jews and millions of others who were systematically murdered by the Nazi regime. Indeed, the swastika continues to serve as one of the most significant and notorious symbols of hate, anti-Semitism, and white supremacy today. It is vital that we strike back against acts of intimidation while also being mindful of the First Amendment rights of free speech and expression. We believe this bill has the potential to do just that. We urge you to support AB 2282. Thank you.
Thank you. We now bring it into the room. Are there any other witnesses in support of AB 2282? Name and organization, please.
Greg DeGiere, the ARC and United Cerebral Palsy California Collaboration, and we support the bill.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California State Sheriff's Association in support.
Thank you. Now we'll go to the phone lines. Are there any witnesses in support of AB 2282? AT&T operator, could you open up the lines?
Thank you. Line 35.
Thank you. Cliff Berg on behalf of the Simon Wiesenthal Center in support of the bill.
Thank you. And line 36, you're open.
Thank you. Kim Stone, Stone Advocacy, on behalf of the California District Attorneys Association, in support.
Thank you. And if there's anyone else, please press 1 then 0. We do have a person with an operator. One moment. The next line is 39. Please go ahead.
Tiffany Matthews on behalf of the Orange County District Attorney's Office in support. Thank you.
Thank you. One moment. The next caller is line 28.
Hello, good morning. This is Morgan Blum Schneider. Strongly support. I represent the Holocaust Center of Jewish Family and Children's Services. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is line 21. Please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Mark Milberg. I'm a Novato Council member, and I strongly support the passage of AB 2282. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Line 19, please go ahead.
Good morning. This is Stephanie Hellman, Mayor of Fairfax. On behalf of the town of Fairfax, we strongly support AB 2282. Thank you.
Thank you.
In line 17, please go ahead.
Yes, this is Constance Carroll with the California Baccalaureate Association. Strongly support the bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Line 13.
My name is David Knepler, Gan Halev, the Jewish Congregation of San Geronimo Valley, and we strongly support passage of AB 2282.
Thank you. Line 33, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Deborah Toyser, member of the Marin County Jewish Community and Jewish educator, in support of AB 2282. Thank you.
Thank you. And line 34, please go ahead.
Alexis Feynman, Mayor of San Anselmo, calling in strong support of AB 2282.
Thank you so much. And 37, please go ahead.
Good morning. This is Stephanie Hellman, Mayor of Fairfax.
This is Sandy Hancher from NOAH Marin, name Oppose and Abolish Hate, in strong support of AB 2282.
Thank you. And line 29, please go ahead.
This is Rachel Kurtz, council member for San Rafael, strongly in support of the AB 2282. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And line 25.
Yeah, this is Brian Colbert, Mayor of San Anselmo. This is Brian Colbert, Council Member of San Anselmo. I strongly support this bill.
Go ahead. Morning, this is Stephanie Hellman, Mayor of Fairfax.
Thank you. And there are no further people in queue.
This is Sandy Hancher from NOAH Marin, name Oppose and Abolish Hate, in strong support of AB 2282.
Thank you. And line 29, please go ahead.
Is that it, operator?
Sir, there's no one else in queue.
Thank you. We're now bringing in any witnesses in opposition of AB 2282. You have 5 minutes total between the two of you. I believe we have Margot George and Fred Williams, ACLU and CPDA.
Good morning, Chair and members. Fred Williams, ACLU Cal Action, in respectful opposition to AB 2282. First, I'd like to thank the author and her staff for being open to working with us and engage with us substantively on the bill. While the ACLU certainly respects the aim of this bill, we have 3 outstanding concerns that we would like the author to address if the bill were to move forward here today. First concern is that in subdivision A, in relation to nooses, there's a requirement that the offender knows it to be a symbol representing threat to life. In subdivision C, there's a requirement that the offender knows the symbol also to be a religious symbol. We would like to see this language added in subdivision B that mirrors the other section knowledge requirement to also help with the aim of brevity and clarity. We also hope the author will provide some clarity around what it means for a person to be associated with a college campus, public park, facility, public space, place of worship, cemetery, etc. As currently written, the language is a bit vague and we feel it would be interpreted in an overly broad manner. Finally, we ask the author to remove the increase in penalties provided in the bill. It has been proven in numerous studies that increased penalties are not an effective deterrent to crime. We would ask that if the goal is penalty alignment, that is accomplished without raising the penalties in the bill. Again, we'd like to thank the author for her engagement on the issue, but due to our concern around the language of the bill, we must respectfully ask for your no vote at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. George?
Good morning. I'm the daughter and granddaughter of survivors of anti-Semitic violence. My grandparents fled Russia to escape the organized massacres known as pogroms that the Tsar launched against Jews. My father changed his name from Goldstein to George when he went south to organize labor unions to avoid getting killed. I wholeheartedly agree with the sentiment that was expressed by the supporters' letter that the rise in white supremacy and extremism is connected to increases in anti-democratic behavior in our state and reflected in the increased appearance of these symbols. I agree with the ACLU and would echo their concerns about the lack of a knowledge requirement and also about the vagueness about the, it's not just the Nazi symbol, but symbol, sign, mark, symbol, emblem, or other physical impression is outlawed by this proposed statute. And in my letter, I talked about that QAnon members might be terrorized by LGBTQ people walking down the street with a gay flag because they would see that as a symbol of pedophilia. In general, I also agree with what the ACLU said about the harms of creating new wobblers. According to the Brennan Center, only 3 other states have felony statutes for swastikas: New York, Virginia, and Washington. And each one of those states says it is either for damaging individual property or drawing it or putting it on the premises that are used primarily for religious purposes or on someone's property. They're not just applied to public places. This will not stem the tide of white supremacy and extremism or actually make the community safer. This is a worldwide problem that we're facing now, xenophobia and white extremism, and as identified by the Durban, South Africa Declaration and Program of Action. And we applaud NOAH Marin, the young rapper in Fairfax, who told the 19-year-old kid who was posting the swastikas stickers to take his flyers and get out of town. NOAH did his part. And politicians and educators and everyone else must do their part and call out and refuse to accept white supremacists in their midst. We thank the author for their amendments, but we respectfully ask for your no vote on AB 2282. Criminalizing behavior will not stop it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any witnesses in the hearing room in opposition? Seeing none, we'll go to the phone lines. Any witnesses in opposition to AB 2282? Open up the phone lines. AT&T operator.
Thank you. And if there are any witnesses, please press 1, then 0. We do have one person that queued up. One moment, please. And line 44, your line is open.
Hello, I was not allowed to speak prior to this. I fully support AB 2282, and my name is Jess Lerner. I support. Thank you.
At this time, there's no one in queue.
Thank you. We'll now bring it back to committee members. Any questions or comments? Mr. Isaac.
I just want to thank the author for bringing this bill forward and the opposition for speaking so eloquently. I know the author's intentions behind this bill, and I trust that the opposition's comments have been well-founded and well heard, and I trust that the author will work on this going forward, and so I will be voting yes today.
Yes, Ms. Bonta.
I want to appreciate the author. We had an opportunity to talk about this when you were considering carrying it, and I recognize the ultimate intent was to ensure, in your review, that we actually brought equity into the way that we were actually meting out consequences for hate. The reality was that prior to this legislation, the displaying of a noose was treated differently than it was for displays of religious religious symbols or swastikas, and it's such a profound example of the way in which the legacy of slavery and the legacy of the treatment of African Americans and Black people in this country still to this day ends up being something that we need to ensure that we address. And so I want to thank you for that. And I also know that you will take into consideration the comments and the issues raised by the opposition. So I will be voting yes as well.
Any other? You may close.
I want to thank my colleagues for their comments, and Ms. Bonta for her explaining, really, when I came to her when I was thinking about doing this. When we discovered this in the code, it was jarring to me and yet also not surprising that we find these vestiges of what has been a long history of racism in our code, and it is incumbent on us to fix it, and that's what we're here to do today. I absolutely will continue to work with the opposition. Some of what was mentioned is current code, so working through the issues around what is vague in the current code, but we want it to be clear. As we mentioned, we were very clear. I was very clear to ensure that it follows the constitutional law that requires an intent to terrorize, that it's not about walking down the street showing your pride through a gay pride flag, which is clearly not intended to terrorize anybody at any moment, but instead show your own pride. This bill is limited to those that are going out and using these symbols to terrorize communities and create fear and commit crimes. And again, it is already criminal in our code. We are just meting it out justly and equally as it should be. And with that, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
And thank you. And I also believe that you will work, as you work with this committee, to making changes so that it comports with obviously constitutional issues and the issues that were raised by both opposition and just in general. I know the reason the Klan isn't as powerful is because of lawsuits. We essentially almost bankrupt them and hobble them. And so financial penalties on organizations from that standpoint can be crippling. So this is in some ways a little bit of an experiment. So I think the committee is willing to move forward, but we want to make sure you do address what the opposition brought up. And so the chair is recommending an aye.
The bill has been moved and seconded. On AB 2282 by Assemblymember Bauer-Kahan, the motion is do pass as amended to the Appropriations Committee. Jones Sawyer. Aye. Jones Sawyer, aye. Lackey? Aye. Lackey, aye. Bonta? Aye. Bonta, aye. Bryan? Bryan, aye. Quirk? Aye. Quirk, aye. Santiago? Sayarto? Aye. Sayarto, aye.
That measure passes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I don't see Mr. Flora, but I do see Assemblymember Lee. AB 2435, item number 4.